One of the issues that new players face when they fire up Jack Nicklaus Perfect Golf is they're not certain about how to make swings and how to use the control methods within the game. Um, that is under the settings and under the controls menu. So under the controls, you've got different device and swing types. The swing type can be a swing meter, which is the classic, let's call it 3-click meter, where you click once to start the meter at the desired power. You would click again, and the meter would return down to ideally the 6 o'clock position, where you would click the third and final time, thus setting the snap, let's call it. And again, that would be your traditional swing meter that most people are probably familiar with. There's also the swing meter pointer method, and the pointer is really much the same, except there's a pointer on the end of the meter, and that would help perhaps see where where you've actually clicked it. It would give that arrow and point there. Same thing with the 12 o'clock, i.e. 100% power, as well as the 6 o'clock snap point. One thing to note with the swing meter pointer is you cannot change the colors of the swing meter, whereas on the main swing meter you can. That's through a different a setting in the configuration settings that's done through the console. It's a little bit more advanced, but if you're having trouble seeing the meter, you can change its color by selecting swing meter and then having to do a few other tweaks. If you want to change the colors, it's probably best to refer to the Perfect Parallel forums. I think there's a sticky there that explains how to change that meter color and how to change it, call it permanently, I guess, in the configuration. If you have to create a text file basically that has the right commands in it and the right options to change the meter color. Again, refer to the forums on Perfect Parallel, and there's some more detail there. So those are the swing meter options. Then you can get into motion swing, which is swinging with the mouse. As you can see, the device is still a mouse and keyboard, and the motion swing is basically done within the same meter, the same circular meter. However, you would move the mouse to set the power as opposed to simply clicking. So you would pull the mouse back towards you in a vertical, I guess it's a vertical motion, not really vertical, but if you look at your desktop, I guess it's vertical from top to bottom. Pull it back and push it forward would be a motion swing method of swinging the club. I believe a left click starts the swing, pull it back, push it forward, and in the proper ratio, ratio being 0.25 would be ideal, i.e. the length of your forward, the time of your forward swing is 1/4 of the time, or 0.25 times the time of your backswing. We'll get into that a little bit later perhaps. Motion swing horizontal is much the same, except you use it in a horizontal motion, so you would go left to right. And for a right-handed golfer, you would go move the mouse to the right first, and then back to the left to get a horizontal swing on the motion swing. Other options would be a real-time mouse swing, and again, this is the same or similar to the mouse swings that we just talked about. However, there is no meter. The meter to determine the power and your snap point, well, there's no snap point in either the real-time swing or the mouse swing, but the power is determined strictly by how far back the mouse moves. far you pull it back towards you, and what the avatar is doing. So when you pull it back, the avatar will move, and if you go back to, let's say the club is in a 9 o'clock position, that perhaps is only 40 or 50% of the potential power for that club. But again, there's no meter per se. You'd have to use the avatar or some other form of reference to determine what the power is set for. The real-time horizontal swing is much the same, but again, it's in a horizontal motion, so left to right as opposed to up and down with your mouse. The next one is a simulation, so this would be for those who would have a simulator set at home, in your house or in your garage or somewhere, and it allows you to have different types of simulation. So the options here would, under the simulation, would be a SkyTrack. You could also do an ES16, a TrackMan 3 or a TrackMan 4, depending on what system you've got. TCP/IP, which is basically, I believe, the GC2, Forefront's GC2. So those are the options for the simulator. And the simulator mode I'm not familiar with. Those who have it can probably, well, you're probably best to refer to the OGT website, onlinegolftour.net, because they have a lot of users and support for the simulation, for the simulator's mode of controls. As you can see, it's set at mouse and keyboard initially. Let me just go back to some other methods here. But if you change away from mouse and keyboard, you've got an option of a gamepad. Now, I don't have a gamepad plugged in, but if I did, I would have to go down and pick the controller that's listed in this list here. Because I don't, it's just counting down, and in 13 seconds now it'll return me back to the screen. But nonetheless, you would pick your controller in here and then use that to play the game. Again, I don't have a controller, so it's hard for me to describe how to use the controller, but nonetheless, there are some options within the game to do so. The keys below here give the default or not the default actions, but these actions are controlled by these default keys. They're not all defaults here. There's the defaults, F8 as the console. But these, so these keys can be set to whatever you want. Just click on the button here on the key and assign a different one. So for instance, the console, if I want that to be F1, I can press F1, it brings up the console, and then if I press F1 again to close the console, it has reset this to F1. And again, I can reset the defaults anytime just by clicking on defaults, and it resets them all. They're fairly standard and fairly intuitive, let's call it, keyboard shortcuts. So a scorecard is an S. If you want to show the grid, it's a G. F is a flyby. T is tend the pin. P is spot the pin. So things are generally, M is a top view or a map. So it's somewhat intuitive, but sometimes you're just going to have to learn or assign these to whatever keys you'd like. So those are the keys and under the controls. Another part of the controls here, which isn't too intuitive, I guess, is the help menu under settings. So if you first click on help, it gives you some feedback or some information on what the controller keys would do, depending on the type of controller you have. I'm not sure how exhaustive this is. Like I say, I don't have a controller. Nonetheless, I hope this would describe most of what the controller shot and what the controller can and can't do. I know there are other methods or other things you need to press and sequences to be able to do things. I'm not 100% familiar with them all, again, because I don't have a controller. But again, if you click on these, so this brings up by default the mapping for a right-handed controller. You can also do a left-handed controller. And again, that shows you the buttons to press to activate these features. If you get to motion swing, this again gives you a little bit of help on how the motion swing works. Again, in this instance, move the mouse backwards and forwards to swing, and you have to click with the left button inside the meter somewhere to activate the swing. Move it backwards and forwards. The mouse path controls the swing path. If you swing forward too quickly, too fast, it closes the club face. If it's too slow, it opens the club face. Ideally, you get a perfect ratio. As I mentioned, I believe the backswing to downswing is actually it's 4 to 1 or 0.25. So your backswing should be 4 times as long as your downswing, or your downswing should be 1/4 of the time of your backswing. Like most of the other ones, you can click this icon here to change the club or the shot type, whether it's a pitch shot or a flop shot or a chip shot, and you can adjust the trajectory with the shot shaper icon here, whether it's a left to right, right to left, a high shot, a low shot, or combinations of those. Again, so that's the motion swing with the mouse. The swing meter, again, that's the 3-click basically. So you click once to start, as it shows here. Click again to set the power, and then click a third time to set your snap. This button, of course, as always, change the club or shot type and adjust your trajectory with the shot shaper. Aiming, of course, you click out into the distance on the main view, or depending on your difficulty settings, in the top view or in some other cameras. This also describes what these icons are: the settings, the top view or a map, a whole flyby, the scorecard, the leaderboard, the grid, turn on and off, tend the pin or spot the pin. Relatively straightforward once you've seen it a bit. At first it might not quite be intuitive, but it's not too bad. So that's the swing meter. RTS, similar to the motion swing, although you right click to start the swing, move the mouse backwards and forwards, up and down, vertically, let's call it. The avatar slows towards the top of the swing when entering the coil zone. This coil zone adds speed and spin to the shot, but any mistakes that you make in terms of your tempo or your ratio are exaggerated. So most people stay out of that coil zone, but there can be benefits to going into it. So it just takes practice, and again, that's where the practice range comes into to play, and is very handy for learning how to control, especially the overswing or the coil zone. But nonetheless, it's similar to the swing, to the motion swing, but again, no meter per se. You just have to use the avatar to judge your power for the shot. The horizontal RTS mouse swing, much the same, except again it's side to side instead of vertically up and down. Everything else is pretty much the same tempo or ratio is required, and away we go. The controller swing, again, I'm not familiar with that much. I don't have one, but you move the analog stick back to set the power, and again, the avatar slows towards the top into the coil zone. Again, it adds ball speed and spin, but it exaggerates any swing mistakes. And you move the stick forward to swing down. The faster you move it forward, the more ball speed you generate, and the slower or the less ball speed. The RTS or sorry, the controller swing does not have the ratio that the mouse swing, that the RTS and the motion swing has. So there is no requirement to have your swing or your forward swing 1/4 of the time that your backswing is. It's that requirement is not there at all. One thing I forgot to mention about the mouse swing and the motion swing and the RTS swings is, and it's not noted on here, but you must complete those within 3 seconds. So 3 seconds from the time you start moving the mouse to the time you finish. If you take more than that, you'll lose distance and possibly lose accuracy as well, but distance is the biggest thing. So again, you want to finish those, the RTS mouse swing and the motion swing, within 3 seconds. Practice mode, again, if you bring up practice mode, whether you're on this is on a course, when you set practice mode, you can choose the hat icon, let's call it, or the game has called it, to bring up the menu where you can set the wind speed, direction, and what hole you want to play on. And then use the golf ball icon to click anywhere in the screen to drop the ball and then play your practice shots from there. So I don't believe, you may have to click mulligans, I'm not sure, to repeat the shot. I think if you don't, it would continue playing the shot or playing out the hole and go from there. So as you can see here, this is the pointer meter with the swing meter with pointer with the point here, I believe, and it's also showing the dots on the meter, which is one of the aids that are in the game, that are in the game settings, I believe, or the player difficulty settings. Alright, so there's your controls, and hopefully that helps players get started with whatever control method they want to use.